Warning, this podcast has stories of real-life events and true crime that happens every day. These stories may contain adult language and graphic or disturbing details not suitable for everyone. Listener discretion is advised.
132 in Bush, I've got him at gunpoint. Check your left phone for pulling a full evacuation on your side.
They're pulling them out.
911. Advise ready for camp.
God.
Welcome to another episode of War Stories. I'm Tom.
And I'm Chuck.
And as promised, we have a great interview this week, I think. How are you? How are you feeling, Chuck? Are you? I know you're on the mend, but you're kind of leveled out with your body and stuff, right? You're not getting any better, not getting any worse.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, okay. So for a little quick update, medical pension is nearing the end. I just got to see a couple more doctors that are mandatory. And then basically all the doctors have basically said, you can't do this shit anymore.
Right.
Is what it is. I'm probably gonna need one more knee surgery. That's what it's looking like. That's actually, the doc said, he gave me like a time frame. He says, if your knee is not better, we're going to have to go in and we're going to have to try either the same procedure we already did, which is basically cloning some cells and implanting them back in me, or we're going to do a procedure from Israel where they take coral and implant it into the knee. And I'm like, all right, cool. That's probably what's going to happen. I'm probably going to do the Israeli one because I already did the other one. It didn't work. Too much scar tissue, too much damage in the knee. So I think I'm going to try the coral, see if that makes it better. If it doesn't make it better, I'm fucked. But there's no more relocating of my knee. I refuse that shit.
Swimming around your knee.
Right. And then, yeah. So, and then my back is kind of like leveled out. It's pretty shitty. But it's some days are better than others. And I'm trying to limp my back as long as I can. I need a fusion, but, I don't want to do that. I want to see if I can
put it off as long as you
wait
can.
as long as I can.
Yep.
But unfortunately, the procedures that I had didn't really take too great. And then back procedures, they're 50-50, man. So it's like it either is going to work really, really, really well, or it's going to revert pretty quick. And it reverted pretty quick, pretty shortly after the surgery, which is interesting. And I thought maybe I could get it a little bit better. Had an epidural didn't work at all. So no more of those ever, because it can actually do more damage than good. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So if anyone's hiring, let me know.
If you need a burnt out.
Serious.
Jesus.
So now, Chuck, you got us. We've got an email.
Yes. So
about someone that intrigues me. So why don't you tell us about this email? Because our guest is.
I jumped on this quick as shit. So publicist reached out to us and was like, "Hey, I've got a client that might be a good fit for you guys." And I was like, all right, cool. I read the email. Actually, you sent it to me, forwarded it to me because I'm booking.
Mm-hmm.
And I read the first portion of it and I was like, 100% don't need to read anymore. I did, but it's pretty interesting. And this is what I read. Jack Treadway and his team of OSI counterintelligence agents were instrumental in
just like
moving
that
over,
in that voice.
yeah, over 100 insurgents from the battle space in Iraq in 2007. They were so good at their job that the enemy took notice. When 3 of his team members were targeted and killed, Jack and his surviving teammates raced against time to avenge their fallen friends. I was like, oh my God, coming next summer. Let's do it.
Right. This is not, so just so you guys know, this is not a trailer that he's reading. This is an actual book written by our guest, Jack. How are you, Jack?
Pretty good. How about you?
We're doing great. We're glad to have you here.
Sound like he's doing too good.
Well, he's doing better, if you can believe that. Going through medical retirement sucks.
I'm gonna quit whining.
Don't drink a lot of, huh?
I'm gonna quit whining about my problems.
Yeah, and
don't
you know
drink
what's
a lot
crazy
of
is
alcohol with your problems either.
that too.
Jesus.
We've had a lot of people on the show that have gone through much worse than us. So we're always grateful to just have every day above ground, every day walking around. And that's why we dedicate our episodes to those that have fallen in the line of duty, because we're lucky. Even if I am a beat up, broken down old beat cop and Chuck's going through medical retirement and hey, at least we're here.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up in the service to begin with? Because as your bio says, first of all, I want to give the name of the book again. It's the first ever memoir by an Air Force OSI agent. It's Insurgent Hunter: Memoirs of a Navy SEAL turned counterinsurgent agent. And tell us a little bit about how you ended up getting into the service to begin with. What's your background and your upbringing?
Yeah. So, from Northern California, I was a Navy brat, so moved around a lot growing up. Dad was a submariner.
No, poor bastard.
On submarines, right? Yeah. He's a little weird. Really liked it. Yeah. So
all submariners are a little weird, aren't they?
Yeah. That's the first thing I told him after my first operations on submarines when I came back from doing lock-in lockouts in the teams. He was excited, hey, how was it? I'm like, you're weird, man.
Straight up, dude.
Yeah.
But the food's good. I hear the food is good.
It was great, man. It's like, I don't know if they eat like that all the time, but every time we got on a sub, it was steak and lobster,
Really?
Yeah, my buddy told me that the subs have the best food in the Navy because you're stuck. There's the only perk you're going to get being on a sub is good food. So the best chefs and the best menus in the Navy are on submarines, is what I was told by my buddy. But Matt told me that.
Yeah. Well, I always know when we went on ship, we were like, oh, fuck yeah, we're going on ship. Dude, they're going to have some of the best food. The Navy is known for their cuisine. And we got to watch football and eat some chicken wings. And we were like, hell yeah. But you're getting steak and lobster?
Yeah, it was good to go, man.
That's
on the
awesome.
sub. And they always played the same movie, no matter what sub we went on. They would play like this old Frogman UDT movie, black and white. They always played the same one, no matter what boat we got on. I appreciated it. It was great. Yeah. So yeah, grew up bouncing around as a Navy brat. When I got in high school, played football, had a really good time in high school, too much of a good time. And the old man was like, hey, look, when you graduate, he goes, you got to find someplace to go because you're not staying here. Your dinner plate is broken. He goes, you should probably pick a branch and just go. So yeah, I went down originally, and I went down to the Army, and I was like, I want to go Ranger and then Special Forces. So I started the process and was getting ready to go to MEPS and all that, and came back, was going to tell the old man, hey, I picked a path, and he's like, boy, don't you know the baddest men to walk the face of the earth are UDT SEALs? I'm like, what is that? And, the old man's impressed. So I got to go, okay, I got to check this out. So back then I could not find anything on it. Nothing. I found a book with a guy with twin steel cylinder tanks on his back, locking out on the outside of a submarine from like World War II. So then I went down and talked to the recruiter and got a pamphlet and showed me all that I need to do. And my old man was a recruiter at one time, and he said he had about 13 guys while he was a recruiter total that would try to go. And he said, out of all the guys he thought would make it, he said the guy he least suspected, finished. So the more I found out, it was like an 80% attrition rate. But hey, if you made it, you were stationed on the beach in either Virginia Beach or Coronado. So
yeah, neither one of those locations are bad.
No. So I was
on the record.
Yeah. So, so that the summer before my senior year, I processed in and I made the commitment. And then that year I just played football and then I trained, man. I mean, I got up, every other morning and I was running in steel toe boots. I'd do like 4 miles and, and I didn't have a watch back then. So I would check the digital on my microwave when I took off out the door. And there was like the halfway point. There was a bank in the middle of the city that had a time, so I knew my halfway point. And I'd hop the fence at the pool at night because I didn't have a pool, and I'd do my swimming in there. And just got ready, man. And I didn't tell anybody that I was going to do it because if I failed, it's going to be pretty
right.
Yeah,
that's smart. Don't tell anybody. Just do it.
Yeah, my football coach caught me on a Sunday though. I used to go on Sundays. I had a short telephone pole I used to throw in the back of my truck. And the nastier the weather was, the better off it was because I knew nobody'd be out there to see me. but I'd drive up to behind the football field where we would run the cross country, and I'd run the cross country with that pole. And he caught me one day. He's like, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" I just kind of shook my head, didn't really tell him. But
Right.
yeah. So
Well, it's actually interesting that parallels a little bit. I've read Marcus Luttrell's book, and he talks about there was him and his twin brother had a mentor who
Right.
basically, he had been a SEAL, I guess, and he had kind of prepped them and taught them to do all this work ahead of time in advance of going to try out for buds and try and make the teams, and it sounds like you did the same thing, only you didn't have that mentor. You just did it all yourself on the down low, so nobody knew.
Correct. Yeah, pretty much. And I just, every bit of information I could get on it, I would just put into it, and what I found out was just to get selected to pass that PT test, I knew right away, okay, well, that's nothing. That you just got to be able to do that. You should be able to be walking off the street and just do that.
Right.
I focused on.
You're talking about the Navy's PT test through boot camp, right?
No, there's the actual.
You get selected for buds.
Correct. Yeah, a SEAL reading PT test that they give you.
Yeah, Matt actually has talked to me about this. Just so you know, Jack, Matt's our other co-host, and he was the one I told you was in the Navy, went to prison. When he went to basic, he said, yeah, the test to get into buds isn't the hard part. Buds, it's not designed to keep people out. Buds is designed to keep people out.
Yeah. So it's yeah. So you gotta I teach in school now, so when I have kids coming up to me with all the information that they have access today, when they come up to me and they tell me they want to go, like special operations of whatever, if they don't know the requirements and their ASVAB score and everything they need to get there, then to me they're not serious, But
right.
I get a kid that comes up to me and he can tell me everything he's got to accomplish, and oh, by the way, he's been working on it, and he tells me where he's at. I'm like, okay, then you're serious. So I'll work with you, So,
awesome.
yeah. So, all that goes through. Yeah. By the way, back then, now they've gotten really smart in how they do the pipeline and recruit guys and get them ready to go now. Back then, you just had to wait while you're in basic, and you're getting out of shape while you're in basic, waiting to be screened.
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. And I got in trouble because I was getting out of shape, and they used to have this thing at night for guys that got in trouble called marching party. And I heard it was ran by a team guy where they just went out there and PT the shit out. So I tried to
purposely got in trouble.
Well, I tried to volunteer for it, and the chief petty officer in charge of our company thought I was a smart ass, so he decided to beat me every night. So I was like, all right, that'll work, So, but anyway. Yeah, so they come into the classroom, and there's a bunch of guys, and we're all sitting there, and they show a video. It was a pretty good video. I liked it even more after I saw that.
Mm-hmm.
They ask for volunteers, and then they take you out and they throw you in the pool, and all these jackasses they're not prepared. I don't even know if they know how to swim, but they all jump in the pool, and they're kind of in your way. So it's like a big man soup in the pool, and you're trying to swim through all that, and I'm like, man, these guys are going to slow me down. I ain't going to make it before I even get out of the pool. So you finish, you get out of the pool. The guys that finished on the time, they take you in the locker room, and they look at their ASVAB scores and tell everybody you didn't score high enough. You shouldn't have swam in the first place,
Right.
And then from there, they took us out, and you do your push-ups, your sit-ups, your pull-ups. By the time we were done with pull-ups, I was the last guy left. And then they take you out to do your 1.5 miles. And back then you wore those Dunga Jams, those bell-bottom jeans, and steel-toe boots. And you had 1.5 miles. So
super fun. Super fun to run.
Yeah. But you're fired up for it. So that's what you're waiting for.
And that was the PT test to get into buds.
Correct. Yeah. And then today, they made a rating for they call it a special operator rating, SO. what they call them now. But back then you didn't have that. So you had to, what they called strike for a rating that for some reason, a guy who strikes for a certain technical job can go to SEAL training. So,
Whoa.
yeah, so I got slated to do sonar technician, and I never did anything to do with, well, I guess I did later on, but I really had nothing to do with sonar on a ship my whole career. So, but you go there. I was there for 3 months, I guess. I tried to get out of it because I heard if you go boatswain's mate, you're only there for 3 weeks. Well, plus I had gotten in trouble before I went in. I got in a kind of a Donnybrook with some guys, and one of them got hurt pretty bad. So I had a civil suit against me, which I had to pay my old man $7,000 for.
Oops.
Shit.
Yeah. So I was worried about my security clearance. I was like, oh crap, because this was going on when I was in basic already. I'm like, wait a minute, what? And then so I tried to get out of the sonar technician, and the SEAL that was doing the ratings, he's like, you leave sonar technician. He goes, he's like, you're gonna go straight to the fleet if you change. So I guess I'm staying sonar technician.
Oops. Well, yeah. The decision was made for you.
Right.
So you get through buds, and then you end up as an counter insurgent. So explain to me, because I'm pretty savvy, but Air Force OSI agent and insurgent hunter. How do you end up being that from Navy SEAL, and what's your story, man? The floor is yours.
Yeah. So, buds, teams, about 14 years in the teams. I broke my back and had my knee reconstructed, so I got sent to Buzz as an instructor. While I was there, we had Green Berets that were working with us. I was in dive phase, and we had Air Force combat controllers that were working with us in dive phase. Everybody in there was either broken or they were transitioning to get out. And why that's the place to go to do that is because you can go to college at night. Right.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and I will tell you that almost every guy that got his degree in that place, except for one, there was 20 of us, went into some kind of law enforcement or an agency.
Sure.
Wow.
So, once you finish your degree, you're like, okay, where do I put this? And I actually applied to the DEA, and I had a friend that was putting in a package for Air Force officer commissioning. He was a controller. He's like, hey man, you ought to do it too. Just copy my package. We got the same training. So me and a special forces guy, we copied his package and we threw ours in with his, and we all got picked up pretty fast.
Oh wow.
Right.
And now for the listeners, OSI is Office of Special Investigations, correct?
Right.
That's that Jack Reacher stuff.
So he was Army CID.
Army CID.
Yeah. Criminal investigations. So OSI is really cool because well, first of all, I found out about OSI through a warrant officer in the SEAL teams had worked with him, and I wanted to be a federal agent. So Air Force OSI, they're federal agents, and they're a combination of active duty officers and enlisted and civilian agents.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So you were not. So not everybody that's in the OSI is a commissioned officer or is actually even a member of the Air Force. You do have civilian agents.
Correct. Yeah. And nobody knows nobody knows who is active and who's civilian except for us, the agents.
Wow.
Right. And we don't wear uniforms. We don't wear insignia. We don't wear rank. Most of the time, when you first starting out as an agent, you're wearing a suit and tie.
Right.
So when I got selected for that, you go to FLETC, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia, with all the other outfits that go there. I loved it, man. You live on the campus for 6 months, and people go, "Why did you love it?" Like, are you kidding me, man? You go there, you fight, shoot, drive fast, learn about the law, and PT every day. It was like a playground,
Yeah. Early in our podcast, we had a friend of the show. She went to FLETC or the law enforcement arm of the federal government. I won't say what, but she's a federal law enforcement agent, and she went to FLETC, and she would send us updates on how it was. And the only thing shitty about FLETC is it's in Georgia, and the weather in Georgia sucks.
Yeah, man, the mosquitoes bring you to your knees.
Yeah, they're prehistoric, man.
Yeah.
Only for the first year. Only for the first year. Then they get your blood, your body acclimates, and then they just leave you alone.
No, Georgia
Those
sucks,
motherfuckers will bite you through clothes.
Yeah.
They don't care.
I was impressed.
So you were considered a civilian agent because you had already gotten out, and you didn't go back in, or were you? Did you?
Yeah, I left. I left the teams one day, and the next day I was in officer training school. So I kept my pension going, my military active duty, my pension.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So wound up doing a total of 28 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So when you and the cool thing too about when I got to FLETC, the selection for OSI is pretty good too. You're in there with some good company. And the men and women that I was in there going through the academy with, once you had a conversation with them, you realized why they were selected. They all had some kind of special training, whether it be some kind of cyber or forensics or some kind of language.
Yeah, they're all specialists, right?
Right. So it was pretty interesting. You had former Marines, you had other former special operations guys. It was a good organization to be a part of,
Sounds awesome, dude.
Yeah. We even had former police officers, lawyers.
I know that for example, I became a terrorism liaison officer for my department, and I know the federal government, there are certain investigating agencies that actually do like to recruit street cops.
Yeah.
And especially narcotics. For example, I was working narcs, and I had a background in narcs, and then I went to terrorism liaison officer school, and there was a guy from the CIA there.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, if you ever want to work for the feds, we always want dope cops at the CIA. And I said, why? And he says, because you guys know how to break down and investigate, like narcotics operations, which are very similar to terrorist cells.
Right.
He says the development informants, the understanding how to do surveillance, very similar. So for those of you cops listening out there, if you want to do some secret squirrel shit, the feds are always looking for good. But you get your shit together, get it all the way together, have a degree, be under 37.
Right.
That was my goal before I got fucking injured. I wanted to do federal, either DEA marshals, or I didn't want to go Fed boys, the FBI. I didn't want to do it. I just had too much bad taste in my mouth from a couple of those dudes. But
it's a different animal. Anyway, go ahead. So OSI, you get there, and it's a lot of street cops and other operators and spec ops guys.
Right. So in fact, the guy that I went through, our names were close in the alphabet, and he was my partner. And this dude was huge, man. He was ripped at 285, and he played.
Oh my god!
Football. Yeah. So
you said Jack earlier. You weren't kidding.
So he
reacher, dude.
Yeah. That he was, but he was actually a narcotics officer in a southern state down there before. But so when we would do jujitsu or something like that, and he'd be on top of me, I'm like, really, man? You think this shit's
it's like wrestling a tree?
Yeah, he's sitting on my chest. So I'm like, me and you get into it, you are never gonna get me on the ground like this. It's just
you're right.
I'm just gonna shoot you.
Right.
Yeah.
But he was a really cool dude, another quality guy, that I got to meet there. So you finish school, you get sent to your detachment. Your primary job is to protect Department of Defense folks, whatever you get attached to. When you're a new guy, you show up, you get all the you get the death investigations, you get the sexual assaults, rapes, all that.
So now let me back you up then. What death investigations and what sexual assaults and rapes, where are they occurring that you have jurisdiction? On base?
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask.
On base or off, if it's DoD personnel, in
okay.
your jurisdiction. So we work with local law enforcement and other agencies quite a bit, like almost on everything, because there's some areas where you can't go serve a warrant unless you talk to the guys that are,
The local boys.
putting somebody on the ground and drawing guns and not let the locals know what you're up to.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you went and did your investigations, you did your knock and talks. Your local guys knew better who to go talk to and where to go find some of this information too. So
yeah,
right.
And same thing overseas. I mean, we have OSI agents all over the world, and you have to do the same thing overseas with your foreign counterparts.
Right.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, and then you hit the nail on the head when you talked about working in some kind of intelligence agency, because my primary goal was to get downrange to do counter intel, going after the booger eaters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I can't imagine you were like happy doing the municipal police stuff of like the mundane, like not to say they're not important, but the mundane reports, like the fucking assaults and the stuff like that. And you're like, oh gosh, like I want to get past this, but I get why you have to start there because you got to learn the basics.
sure, and
And it's good experience.
Oh yeah, you get put with some guys like, I was an officer agent, and I got partnered with a guy that was an E6, but he had about 15 years of experience, so he was in charge. You know what I mean? And he was training. So you got to be professional too. You can't all that kind of goes out the window unless somebody's gonna get killed or do something illegal. I'm really not an officer at that point. The quality thing. I'm learning from this guy.
Yeah, when I worked with a lot of high speed guys, and expertise is expertise, like you were talking about, specialists in OSI. They all have a specialty, and if you don't know how to run a surveillance, get out of the way and let the experts run a survey, because it's not like following people is an art form.
It is. You got to train for it, man, and it takes more than just one car. It takes more.
Yeah, right. I get my wife. I get so mad at how people are surveilled and how cops do surveillance in film and TV, almost more than a lot of other bullshit. Like I can deal with a lot of other but surveillance is such a fine art. It's the same thing with developing informants.
Right.
You don't send any jackwagon to go out and try and develop informants. You better have some skills if you want to start developing informants.
Exactly. So back to your point about your guys who were other agencies that talked to you because you had product experience. So when I told my bosses, like, hey, that's what I want to do. I want to do the downrange mission. They're like, okay, then you got to get in narcotics because you got to learn how to run confidential informants.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, I'm in. And but you got to have experience before you go to do that and start running informants and doing their surveillance and everything. So you get there, you're narcotics, of course, as you grow your hair out and you grow your beard out. And I wore flannel shirts and jeans with holes in them to work, and rode my Harley a lot. And and then you develop some informants, and to develop an informants, a lot of times you gotta bust guys that are already involved,
right.
They're already a little dirty. So, but you learn how to do that at home, and then they say, okay, now you're ready to go, and they send you downrange.
Right.
Yeah.
So what happened when you obviously were ramping up? Because I'm assuming your book deals with the stuff you were doing downrange. What happened?
So you get into counterinsurgency, which that's gonna. I imagine counterinsurgency has got to be a lot of developing human assets and surveillance and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So your job downrange is basically you're an investigator, and you're running informants, and you're putting evidence together, and when you develop a target, then you find a team to action it, and depending on how gnarly your target is depends on the team that can action them. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Well, is it capture? Is it not capture?
so almost all of them are killer capture.
Right.
Almost all. Yeah.
Sure.
Awesome.
So yeah. So when I got there on the ground, OSI teams, normally we're about 10 folks, and we had interpreters and we had analysts, and we had our support folks. But before I got there, they used to have tactical security elements, which were Army. So when you went out to meet an informant, or you went out on a raid with the Army or something, to do sensitive site exploitation, basically collecting evidence and interviewing people.
Right.
You had the tactical security element, the Army guys attached to your OSI detachment. They'd take you out, and you'd only need 2 agents and your interpreter, and you'd go out and you'd meet your informant someplace secluded, and get your intel. And those guys were like your security. Well, when I landed, the Army was so busy with their ops tempo, they stripped all the OSI detachments of their TSEs, or tactical security elements.
Oh, wow.
So, but OSI still had to do their mission. So, depending on your who your senior guy who owns your battle space that you went out on patrol on, they told you what your requirements were to go outside the wire. And at Balad Air Base, ours was, we had to have 3 Humvees minimum, and 3 guys in each truck minimum, and we had crew serve weapons mounted on the top.
So what time frame are we talking?
So I was there in 2007.
Oh, okay. So, nothing going on.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's right when I enlisted, dude. You were doing the secret squirrel shit right when I was like, I think I'm gonna go in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm an old dude. So when I landed, the
That's
base
when I was working narco.
bombed like an average of 40 times a week, getting rocketed and mortared. And the EOD guys there, the package they had said that they had either been found or hit in the past year 1,035 IEDs in our battle space. Yeah, so it was when you went outside the wire, your ass puckered a little bit,
Yeah, for sure.
But
I can only imagine.
Right, so
does that dirt look different than the rest of the dirt? Swear to God, that dirt looks different than the rest of the dirt.
You know what? And the part of Iraq I was in reminded me a lot of Fresno.
Yeah. You know what? They're probably about the same as far as danger.
Did you have a lot of tracks out there, Marine Corps tracks out there? Amphibious vehicles?
What's that?
Did you have a lot of amphibious vehicles out there where you're operating?
No.
That were clearing minefields and shit?
No, what we had, the Army would have like
the Bradley
Buffalo, and when I left, they brought MRAPs out there. But we were just in up armored Humvees, man. Yeah, and
so you had that going for you.
Right. Yeah. So, well, before I got there, and before guys were just going out there in like up armored Suburbans before the Humvees.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Fuck, dude.
Yeah. So
that's that Blackwater shit right there.
Right.
Yeah.
So, wow. So when I got there and got on the ground, some of the guys that were leaving were like, they're impressing upon me, like, look, man, look how many intel reports we write and all this. And I'm like, yeah, man, but how are you affecting the battle space? You're getting bombed 40 times a week. What are your intel reports doing to take these guys off the battle space so they quit doing that shit to us?
Right.
So what we wound up doing is we broke out a chart, and we broke up sectors around the base. And then we assigned 2 agents to each sector and said, anything that happens in that area aimed at us or anybody on patrol out there, that's your fault. You're accountable for it. So say for instance, if we had rockets coming in, the Army had systems where you can get a point of origin where that shit came from. So
Right. They could kind of ballistically trace it back to its origin, right?
right. So and it was almost immediate, right? I could pull it up on my screen in my office, and I could walk into the bullpen where all the other agents were and say, "Look, that's your area. Let's get on it, man." The sirens are going off, and stuff's landing on the airfield next to us. So that's what we decided to do, and you kind of took ownership, and you're kind of proud of shutting that stuff down.
Right.
So by the time I left from and how we did it was human intelligence, and we would try to synergize it with image intelligence and signals intelligence, and work with our other our other units that were out there who were also collected and tracking and patrolling.
Right.
And then once we had a target, we'd get with whatever unit could action it, and we'd go with them and do a raid on where these guys were living or located.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how does talk me through. So I imagine these things get pretty nautical. Talk me through one of your raids. Like, how does it go? And tell me about one of them that sticks out in your mind as because we all know, right? If they go to plan, right? Like it's not interesting when it goes to plan, but nothing ever goes to plan.
Right. Yeah. So I'll tell you about a frustrating one, but in the end, the bad guy still got theirs. Okay. So another thing that was cool is we had a base defense operations center, or a joint defense operations center. They call it a JDOC. And the Army guys ran it out of there, but you also had Air Force guys who were inside, who had security forces that patrolled inside the wire on the perimeter. Some units, security forces, would go outside the wire, but their primary concern was the airfield. So they're working in there with the Army, and the Army's doing most of the patrolling till about 12 miles out to 20 miles out outside the base. So inside there also, you'd have a JTAC who's operating a Predator. Right.
Oh, right. Okay.
So some of our missions, I mean, I would sit down with this guy and I would get in like a couple hours what it would take me 3 to 4 days as a on a reconnaissance team, on an RNS team as a sniper in the SEAL teams. It'd take me about 3 or 4 days to get, and you'd get it in a couple hours with this guy.
Wow.
So you could put a really good target package together as far as helicopter landing zones, what's around the door to be breached, if there's dogs, if there's guys guarding, where he squirts to, all that stuff. So we were able to put some pretty good packages together. So this one in particular, one of my buddies, one of our fallen agents who was there, he had a intel to hit 2 targets at one time. We had to go to a forward operating base because another unit owned that battle space. And I think these were 3rd Infantry Division guys, 3rd ID guys. The guys that we were working with out of our base were first Cav guys. They were artillery guys that had to learn how to do urban warfare, basically. So we went out to the forward operating base, and we don't look like military at all, man. I mean, because we got to go visit a lot of sheikhs, and some guys are wearing old tanker uniforms from the Army. I'm wearing like desert bottom half with a t-shirt on the top. Everybody's got a beard. Some guys got hair down to their shoulders. It's too hot to roll like that. Baseball caps, and then your tac vest and your rifles and your pistols. So we roll in there, and we got to go talk to this major that's running that FOB. And he's like, "Who the hell are you guys?" So yeah, we're Air Force Office of Special Investigations. He's like, he looks at us kind of funny, like, "Okay, well, sure you are, whatever." So we sit down and we tell him, like, "Hey man, we got a target over here, some guys that have been rocketing our base from this area behind your FOB, and also we know where their weapons cache is. It's over here." So we show him on the map. He's like, I think we can hit both these places at one time. And we're like, that would be cool, because if you hit one, the other one's going to disappear.
Right.
So we plan it for another day. Just to patrol from there to their base is a lot of IEDs are laid on that route, you know.
Mhm.
I mean, there's times where we came out of there and there's a hole smoldering on the damn road that we drive by from IEDs. And what these knuckleheads would do is they would plant these bombs in the same hole that they dug before. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah. So you kind of knew, you thought you did, you kind of knew, you know, where you wanted to be careful at, what you wanted to look for. But how I lost my 3 friends, it didn't really help us that night for sure.
Right.
So we go on this mission. We link up with the Army guys. If we used any of the Iraqi soldiers, they wouldn't tell them what the mission was until we were already on target. Basically, they would just load it up in the trucks with guns, because some of those guys were not on our side, you know.
Right. And again, it's hard to know.
Right. And they would try to take all their cell phones from them and everything. So on this particular mission, we go. We have part of our team go with some Army guys to go hit the weapons cache, and we have, and I'm with the other group that's going to hit the targets. There's 4 guys we're looking for, and we have Apache helicopters with us. Apaches are awesome, man. They're like guardian angels to us.
Yeah,
Those
those things are pretty dope.
Yeah, the only bad thing about it is the booger eaters heard those things coming. They knew they had to get out of Dodge quick. So I even had friends in the teams that would come back from downrange and said, "Man, if I ever come back in another life, I'm flying Apaches." You know. So we go in and we go in a patrol down this road. We got one of those mine detecting vehicles in front of us. It looks like a damn caterpillar or something. Yeah, it's got like all kinds of arms and stuff off of it.
Did it have that weird grate in the front where it like comes in the front and starts like sifting through it and blows it up in front of you?
Yeah,
the
it
engineers
does.
use?
It's supposed to do that. Yeah. But I had never seen one at this time. This is one of my first missions with it, and we're stopped and we're in the Humvee, and I think we also brought an informant with us to positively ID any guy we pulled out, so he could tell us like, yeah, that's your man. You know.
Oh, I love it, dude. They're doing infield show-ups in Iraq.
Yeah. So,
This might be the guy, but it might not be the guy.
right.
Is this the guy?
Do you have to give him an advice? Okay, so I'm genuinely curious.
No,
when
no
you're a cop,
out there, man.
no, but we had to tell him the guy.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna show you somebody. He might be the guy, might not be the guy. If he's not the guy, it's him. Just as simple. Like, do you have to do, or do you just be like, "Hey, look at this guy. Tell me," and they're like, "Yeah, that's him."
Yeah. So normally our informants are pretty well vetted, and normally we have another informant running against them that they don't know about. So we already have all the information we need, and we kind of have an idea of what the guy looks like a lot of times before we even get out there.
Right. Okay.
So and it's normally an informant we've been running for a while. And then you got him all covered up. You got the windows darked out, and you can't really see him in there. So we stop, and I'm like, "What the hell are we stopping for? The Apaches are flying ahead of us. These guys are going to boogie. We're not going to get them, you know." And the guys radio back to me. They're like, the vehicle up front thinks it might have located a mine. I said, "Okay, we'll take our time, man. We'll just sit here, you know." No sense in rushing through that. After it did some investigating, it wasn't an IED. We continued on into the village, and immediately the helicopters are going towards the palm trees, like out by towards the Tigris. The guys are squirting that way already. They hit one house, and the soup is still hot. That's in the kitchen on the right. So
damn.
So all the soldiers take off, and we set up a perimeter, and we're on the edge with our Humvees. And there's a like an APC, like an armor personnel carrier by us with some soldiers in it, and we're sitting there holding on the perimeter, waiting for them to call us in, to check these guys out and to go through the house. But we're we trained in tactics too. Even just law enforcement, you can clear a building. You know what I mean? So
Right.
and
Right.
a lot. We would shut down on Fridays and Saturdays and do a lot of that on our own. Stress courses, a lot of shooting and stuff like that. And we trained enough to know that we can break contact and hold our own, and hopefully until help gets there. But we knew we weren't going to go on the offensive.
Right.
And
Right.
so we fight well enough to save a guy that went down and get a quick reaction force there, or the Apaches to come out and help us out when we were on. So anyways, we were the Army, and they took off after the guys that squirted into the palm trees. And Orion, one of the guys with me on the perimeter, he looks up and there's a guy looking at us peeking through the windows on a second floor, and there's soldiers on the other side. So we call back to those guys and we tell them, like, hey, you got a guy, watching you guys from his side. It's a military age male, and he's trying to hide. So they asked if we can clear that building. And we cleared a lot of buildings while we were there.
Sure.
So, like, yeah, I go, but we're going to have an empty spot on this perimeter. Can you send any soldiers back with you? So they sent us one guy back, and I'm like, cool. And one of our guys is holding on a window where he just saw the guy looking through, and we go to breach the door, but we give him a chance. Our interpreter tells him, like, hey, either you open this door and let us in, or we're going to bust it down. We're going to blow it.
Right.
So they're yelling at each other in Arabic, and he decides to open the door. We roll in there, we grab him and toss him out the front door. This big guy, he's a OSI reservist, if you can wrap your head around that one.
How does that?
That's crazy.
Yeah, so he's actually a park ranger. He was a park ranger, but he was active at one time, and then got out and stayed in OSI, but was a reservist in the Air Force OSI. So he would get called back to duty from time to time.
That's cool.
Right.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah. He was a beast, man. We called him Gator. I mean, he was just one of those cockstrong guys who could, bench 350 just waking up in the morning, never had to work.
And he's a park ranger.
Yeah, park ranger.
Awesome. Love it.
Dude, I'd be so scared. I'd be like, yes, sir, I don't have a license.
I'm never going to talk shit about park rangers again, just in case it's that guy.
Yeah, he had no neck, man. So I threw the booger eater out to him, and he puts his forearm on his throat up against the wall. It's like, you got him, Gator. He's like, he's not going anywhere. So we got to go in and we got to clear the rest of the house. The house is clear. We come back out, and the Army's like, hey, that's awesome. We have another one in the far right corner. Can you guys clear that one? It's like, holy shit. But, the guys I'm with are like, hell yeah, let's go. And I'm like, all right. Not our thing, but okay, we're going. So we go. And there's a big guy in this one. He even looks like Saddam a little bit. And he does not want to let us in his house. And his wife is going ape shit and it's almost like police work at this point, trying to calm her down and the kids down.
Yeah, sounds like
I was gonna say the way you cordoned and tried to do your call out is exactly the way we run perimeters and we do breachings in law enforcement. And you're like, hey, can you send me a guy? And they're like, yeah, we'll send you one. And like to hold a spot on a perimeter, and it's exactly like what you would do in a major metropolitan area when you're having like a bunch of assholes in a house.
I guess when tactics work, they you keep using them.
Yeah, if it works, it works.
Yeah. So those guys are still in the palm trees. We go into this house. The wife and the guy that we're cuffing up, he wanted to get froggy a little bit because he's a good sized dude. But I think he looked around and saw how many of us there were. There's like 4 of us, and he decided to relax. And we cuffed him up. We went and cleared his place out. Weird thing about the Iraqi homes is they sleep on the roof a lot. So you think you cleared the whole building, but you still got to go up on the roof, So,
wow.
Yeah. So anyways, we, before we actually cleared that first building where we got the one guy, the Army had caught 3 guys. So we had those, and me and Orion, we had bags over those guys' head, and those guys cuffed up. We put them back in back of the APC with the Army. And then we grabbed our guy and we took him too. So these guys were PID, positively identified by our informant, as the guys that were rocketing our base. I think the big fish though got away. He's the one that had the house with a warm bowl of soup. I don't want to say somebody said they saw a half burnt cigarette there too, but anyways.
Fuck, he was like right there.
Yeah. They hear the Apaches, man. It's a good night, you know.
They bug out.
Yeah. So we wrap these guys up. We take them back. The other guys hit the weapons cache. And they hit a mother load. EOD is with them, and they blow it in place. So it's a good mission. We go back, and at the time, and this time in 2007, they were trying to start this hearts and minds things where they were trying to get some of these insurgents to come over to our side and start helping with roadblocks and stuff like that and paying them off. So we took these guys.
That worked so well in Vietnam.
Right.
They have a whole unit dedicated to it called Public Affairs where they just give them money and they think they can just buy them. And I'm like, you guys are stupid.
A Hearts and Minds campaign that I like is 2 in the heart, 1 in the mind.
Right. Yeah, it was interesting how it went because it looked like it was working for maybe a couple months and then things just went to shit again. And these guys were playing both sides. They were taking the money and the insurgents part-time and doing the roadblocks part-time. Yeah.
So, they start taking the money, and then as soon as they figure out how to play both sides, they just go back to playing both sides.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
This is the same thing in modern day law enforcement. When you have
well, and here's the thing: at least like snitches, your snitches are still like they're only going to give you the other dealers. They're not going to give you their dealer.
Right. And it was interesting there because you had the Sunnis diming out the Shia diming out the Sunnis, you know.
Right. They're like, I'll give you those guys. Fuck those guys.
So we take these guys back, and the Army lets 3 of them go. Their commander lets 3 of them go and keeps 1. So my guys are pissed because they did all that work to put those target packages together, and they're just going off, you know. And I'm like, listen, man, you know, you're an agent. And that guy's a colonel. That's his battle space. That's what he wants to do. That's what we do, you know. If the guy turns up again doing wrong, then we get him again, you know. And, you know, but inside my mind, I'm like, yeah, great. So one of them fucking rockets hits a building and kills somebody, or one of his IEDs kills somebody on patrol. So, interesting enough, man, I think it was not even 2 or 3 days later, but these guys are back at it, and they're rocketing the base from the same area. Jeez. And we have a
oh my gosh,
hits these 3 guys with a Hellfire rocket.
Nice.
Kills 2 of them and sets 1 of them on fire.
All right.
Yeah.
So all well that ends well.
Right. So the guys were happy after that. Like, let's
I mean,
they're like, God dang it, we're getting fucking rocketed again from the same fucking spot. And they come back later like, hey, yeah, by the way, though, we decided to send a Hellfire over there and killed 2 of them. The other one just fucking burnt to shit.
Right.
Running around like a fucking chicken with his head cut off. And like, oh, that makes it better.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Just validate that we had the right guys, you know.
I mean, it's you know, it's about the same as hooking up some dude on a righteous caper. You get him for a good felony, and the judge releases him, and then he's out on bail and he commits another fucking crime. So
this time,
like I said, all the same.
Yeah.
And then you find out the rival gang just fucking offed him, and you're like,
oh, all right.
That works too, right?
Dickhead.
Yeah. So,
man.
Yeah, so we had a lot of
missions.
That's
crazy.
Yeah, we a lot of missions like that. When we lost our 3 guys, Tom, Nate, and Dave, when we lost them on that night, it was one of the most routine patrols we would typically go on, and it wasn't a planned informant meet. Nate was on to an Iraqi captain who was a double agent. We didn't know it at the time, but Nate knew something was up because he had arrested one of Nate's snitches who was a Sunni, and this guy was a Shia. And these guys we find out later on are supported by Iranian militia guys.
Okay.
The militia guys supported by the Iranians. So we had a mission we were going to go on that night. It got canceled Um, so Nate was already having beef with this Iraqi captain in that area of operation, and we had some guys were taking pop shots at us one night when we were in that area, but we couldn't nail down who it was. I think thinking back on it now, I think it was probably the Iraqi captains in one of his patrols. But we had two other agents who had information on some guys who had killed one of our EOD guys with a secondary explosive. They put one out, kind of like a dummy for an EOD tech to come in and investigate it, and they set off a secondary and killed him. So when they had that intel, I'm like, okay, well, we cannot not go out and meet this informant you guys have to get this information. So when we went out that night and went to that area, it was basically like a setup. There was a pressure plate IED there waiting for a patrol when we got there.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Right. And then when the thing about us is we could investigate exactly who did it.
Right.
Through our human that we have. And then our synergizing with our SEGANT guys and our imagery intelligence guys, we could pretty much pinpoint it. And then through all our sources that we have in the area, and it all came back to this Iraqi captain and some of his guys. So, yeah,
Damn.
yeah.
And so, did you end up? That's, I guess that would be my big question. Is so your boys get basically blown up in an ambush, right? They get set up,
Right.
And,
We were a 3-truck convoy, and I made a decision that night in about 15 seconds where I was going to drive the first truck. We were short a guy that night. He was sent to a cutter for something, so we were short a guy that night, and I normally wouldn't drive. And they had me driving the second truck, and they had Nate driving the first truck with Tom and Dave. And I heard after the mission was briefed, I had made some changes already, and the guy's mission it was Max and Dave's, and I could see they were tired of me screwing with her. You know how it is, man. You don't once you have a plan, you have a mission. You don't want an officer in there, micromanaging crap. But
right.
they had the commander driving, which that was a no-go. We put him in the back truck. They had me driving the second one, that was fine with me. They always wanted me in the center truck anyways for tactical reasons if something went down. And I would make the calls on how we're going to break contact or cover a Humvee and recover guys. And then I was going to drive the first truck simply because it was probably going to be the last mission where Nate and Matt got to go on a patrol together, because Nate was getting ready to rotate back home, and those guys were roommates. Nate lived with Mac and his wife at their house. And they were looking at me, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, no, man, Nate was a great point, man. Nate knew that turn off into that area better than I did. And if you pass it, you blow by it, you miss it, then everybody's pissed off at you, because now you got to drive all over the place, possibly hitting an IED, covering terrain you didn't have to turn around and come back to what you missed, because it wasn't easy like you can just turn around like you turn around on out here, Right. So I was like, yeah, all right, I'm not going to touch it, we're good. So they kind of smiled, like, okay, you're leaving it alone the way it is. And I left Nate driving that first truck, man, and it was about a 15-second decision. And he took us right there, but shit,
So now, do you get to go after the captain that fucking planned it?
Yeah. So, so it's real dicey when you start pointing the fingers at somebody who's supposed to be an ally out there with us, who's gone on missions and everything. The deal with this guy was, as long as you were going after Sunnis, he was all about it. But the second you started targeting, and this guy was a bad dude. I mean, we had intel on throwing a grenade into a family's house, and then a kid running out the back door, and he shoots the kid.
Holy shit.
Yeah, he's just bad news. We had intel on him killing one of his own colonels.
Wow.
Yeah. So we grab one of the guys. We get one of the guys, and he gets sent down to Baghdad to be hung. We had to go down there and uh, witness to it, subpoenas, write statements, all that crap. And then the Iraqi captain is who we wanted, so that's who we were trying to tell the Iraqi, judges down there. That's who we wanted. I think they were Shia. I don't think they gave a shit. The area that this guy was from, we actually tried to stay out of it because we knew that Shia militia, Iranian backed, were thick in there. It was just a dangerous area.
Mhm.
But when we finally had some more intel to go get another one of those guys down there, the commander and our colonel from that was stationed over in Qatar were saying, "Hey, man, you need to take, because you're supposed to get 3 days off in the middle of your tour, anyways, or something. Go to Qatar, stay in a nice hotel, drink some beer, whatever, decompress." Right. And that's what one of our guys was doing. And so they were like ordering me that I had to do it, and I had one of my most experienced agents set to go do a raid on a guy's house in that bad area. It was called Dujile. And it was a pretty good trek out there. And we didn't want to go. The Army didn't want to go unless we had tanks. Well, we wound up not getting tanks, but we got a shit ton of Army guys and APCs and Humvees. So that worked. When the mission was scheduled, the agent came up to me and he's like, "Hey, where are you going?" And I said, "They're sending me to Qatar. They packed my bags and they had them sitting by the door." The unit shrink and the damn chief were taking me with them down there to take a break, because we've been at it pretty hard for a few weeks, tracking these guys down, and we had got one, but the one I wanted was the captain. This guy he went from like E3 to captain in 2 years. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, when he came to me, he looked at me and I go, you want me to go with you, don't you?" He's like, "Could you?" So I went and I jocked up my gear, grabbed my rifle, my secondary, and my radios, and I walked into the office and I said, "Hey, I got to go on this mission, guys. Yeah, I know you guys think it's better for me to go down there." I go, "But I'm better if I keep working." And they just kind of looked at me, and I walked out, and we went and jumped in the Humvees, and we took off and rallied up with an army, and we headed into that city, and that was a mess, man. We went into that city, we hit this house. It was pretty populated. There was nobody there. All of a sudden, we were just like surrounded by a crowd. And I told my interpreter, I said, "Hey, start asking some of these people if they know who this guy is we're looking for." And this guy comes up and he's like, "Hey, I know who you want. Will you pay me?" And to my interpreter, and he looked at me and he told me, and I said, "Yeah." He says, "Okay, but you got to freaking beat me up and put me on the ground and cuff me to make it look good, or these guys are going to get me." So like, all right. So shit, I swept his feet, put his face on the ground, cuffed him up, and threw him in our Humvee. And he took us to the house on the other side of town. And the Army guys were really cool about it because, you just fragoed the whole mission. You're doing stuff on the fly now. So we patrol, but they know how important it is. So we patrolled to this other house. And by the way, we have these guys with us. OSI created a unit. It was actually a former special forces guy, Army Special Forces major. He started this unit called the Anti-Terrorism Specialty Team. And I used to go to some of the courses with these guys. Since I was in the SEAL teams, I would go to some of the courses with these guys and audit the training that they were being put through. And tactically, these guys were really sound. They were mature guys. They were like all salt and pepper hair. They kind of reminded the HRT guys we used to train when I was in the teams.
Okay.
Very seasoned guys. And they can run informants, man, like nobody. So when we lost our guys, they landed, and there's about 4 or 5 of them, and they rolled out with us on this mission like they'd been there yesterday, you know. So we got those guys with us. We go into this place. We hit this house, and it's a guy that's part of the captain's crew. Might even be one higher up. We go, the soldiers kick his door open. We go inside. The AST guys start searching the place. We got a perimeter outside. One of the AST guys is manning a crew serve weapon out there. And more crowds are starting to come around. This guy's telling me, like, hey, man, there's nothing here. There's nobody here. We don't do anything. The AST guy with me is reading him, and he's like, this guy's full of shit. And I find this room down the hall, and it's the door's locked. And I'm like, what's in this room? And the guy's like, oh, an old lady rents that place out. She just stays there. She's not home. So I look at this big soldier next to me, and I'm like, hey, kick that door in. So he kicks the door in there, and there's all kinds of shit, man. There's ammo. There's stuff for making IEDs. There's grenades. There's AKs. We're like, yeah, this old lady, man, she's keeping secrets from you, huh?
Fucking weapons cache, huh?
Right. So we clear that place out, and I grab that guy and I take him out front to the soldiers, and I'm like, hey, hold on to this guy. Don't let him go anywhere. He's going with us. So they start questioning him and asking him for his ID and everything. And one of the AST guys calls for me, and I go out there, and he's like, hey, this van rolling by, it's the third time it's rolled by, and it's got its side door open. There's military age males in there. It's like, whatever we're doing, we need to wrap it up. And then we heard gunshots like a couple homes over. So we're like, all right. And this is looking like it could get bad real quick. So I go back, and I'm like, hey, where's our prisoner? Like, oh, we let him go to the house next door. He said he was going to get his ID to prove who he was.
Oh, God. Me.
Like, you're shitting me. So I called the lieutenant, and the lieutenant that's with us comes out, and he just berates these guys. I'm like, holy shit. So the lieutenant's like, hey, let me go back. Let me have your terp. You guys go outside, and I'll go back in this building with this woman and these kids, and I'll get out of him where he went. I'm like, no, we don't roll like that. Let's just get out of here.
Right.
So we get everybody out. We rally up. We take all the crap we found with us, and that guy's in the wind. And I'm worried that he's going to call somebody up and say, hey, come and hit these guys that hit my house. So we all jump in our trucks, and and I go out to the lieutenant. I said, hey, I don't want to go back the same way we went out. I know we always go safe in, safe out, but I don't feel safe going back that way. Is there a quicker way to get back on our main road, go on this side of the city? He's like, yeah, there's a route right up here, like half mile down the road. I'm like, let's roll that way. He's like, I agree. We get down the road, not even a block, and guess who's sitting there watching the whole operation?
The fucking guy.
Yeah, the Iraqi captain with one of his henchmen.
Oh, fuck.
When I saw that, man, I just wanted to pull a grenade and roll it underneath this damn truck. Or
and you guys couldn't stop and like fucking jump out and
no. We didn't have enough on him yet, you know. And you get in a lot of trouble. I mean, it ran through my mind like for years, like that AK going around the other side of the building, lighting that damn truck up, dropping it and walking back around. You know, it's just a lot of bad things go through your head because you know he killed your brothers, you know.
Right.
So I don't think I ever felt that much hatred where you could taste it, you know, for somebody. So we roll out the other way, and coming to find out it was a good call because they had set an IED on the route we would have went back, and an Iraqi colonel hit it, or another Iraqi officer hit it. Yeah, and was killed. Right. On the route we would have went back out. Yeah.
Yeah, well, your gut instinct, you mean the spidey sense, they tell us in law enforcement, like if you get the hairs tingling on the back of your neck, something's probably wrong. Yeah. And generally going with your gut instinct is probably the correct answer. And it turned out that it fucking was. And, you know, it saved you and the rest of the teams that were with you, or the team guys or Army guys that were with you, and you saved all their lives. So, I mean,
well, we all agreed, you know, it was like, it was getting kinky in there. We were just waiting for it to come down on us.
Yeah. It's like going in the middle of the fucking ghetto, right? Like in the projects, and trying to hit a few apartments in the projects. And next thing you know, you have all looky-loos coming out, and there's only one way in and one way out. You're like, fuck me, we gotta go. You know,
Right.
you're the law, you're the police, you're whatever, but they outnumber you, and if they decide to revolt or lynch whoever you have,
Yeah.
you are fucked.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's the thing. Like, ultimately, you know, your authority lies in your ability to keep large masses of people at bay, because if they decide fuck you and they're willing to give up, you know, a couple of people,
Yeah.
you're shit out of luck.
dude, my agency has fucking contingencies for that with
Yeah.
projects. They're like, hey, you go into this. I'm not going to name the project because you'll get it. You'll know exactly where it worked. But you go into these projects, and one of a few projects, and they're like, hey, if people start coming out, I don't give a fuck who you are. Grab who you are and take off down the road. And you're like, well, what about like kidnapping? Like, we're gonna get fucked for kidnapping. Not if you can articulate the reason why you had to, for tactical reasons, why you have to leave with that person in custody, even if you're just doing an investigation, because there are dangerous situations where officers have been, you know, ambushed or whatever. So there's always this contingency, like, this is the last option this is how you're going to be able to articulate it and get the fuck out of there and go like 2 miles down the road so that you don't get fucked up. And there's even times where you have to go to special locations where you can't go with one officer. You have to go with at least 3 or 4 and a supervisor,
Right.
because it's going to be bad. And that sounds like the area that you were going to. Like, you know, this is a bad area. You have to come in with a shit ton of people, because the longer you're there, the worse it gets, and the more they get to start to surround you, and it's quiet. And when shit goes quiet, it ain't good.
Yeah. And that's similar to what we were discussing before we started recording. But you know, there's a lot of agencies where, depending on what area you go to, you're not a community police department, you're an occupying army, and it's just, it is what it is. Well, Jack, we would love to have you back. I feel like we could just keep going and keep going and keep going. Would you be willing to come back on? We'd love to talk about your time on the teams. We'd love to get some of these other stories.
Sure.
I know you've got more.
Sure. Yeah, man. You know, it's like I tell the kids, you know, when I'm talking about, you know, I teach military history, you know, and, you know, I can throw a story in there. They go, hey, those are awesome stories. They don't know, by the way, that I wrote a book, and I'm not telling them, but they always say, hey, you should write a book. But I tell them, I go, hey, go do something, go do a job like this. Talk to your folks. If they serve, I'm sure they got the same stories, and you can have your own, guys. You know?
Right. Yeah.
Well, why don't you talk about the book a little bit so our listeners can know where to get it and where to find you?
Right.
Yeah,
so, myself, I don't have a social media footprint at all.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah,
Smart.
but the author, Stephen Templin, you know, he's wrote several books. He's got a couple bestsellers in the past. I knew him from Buds, as a matter of fact.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But yeah, he's got all the social media and the contacts and the information. The book itself, yeah, pretty much just, you know, it's dedicated to our brothers that we lost. They were really good at what they did, and that's why they were targeted, you know. You know, I try to, you know, tell our guys, I'm like, listen, we're going into villages and people are disappearing that day, that night, or a couple of days later. They're going to figure out who's doing it, or who the reason is, and then they're going to come after us. And sure as shit, that's what happened to us.
Well,
So,
Stephen Templin is you can find him. This is the book is Insurgent Hunter.
right.
And you can get it at Stephen Templin, STEPHENTEMPLIN.com. Or I'm sure you can get it at Amazon US, Amazon UK, Barnes and Noble, anywhere that you find fine books.
Kindle, a lot of people are reading it off now. Yeah.
And let's see, I'm trying to see if he's got his let's see here. Facebook and Twitter. You can follow him on Twitter, or what is it, X now. Let's see. His doesn't say what his Twitter handle is. And you can find him on Facebook. I'm sure if you search facebook.com/Stephen.Templin, or if you search X for Stephen Templin, you'll find it. But again, the book is Insurgent Hunter. So if you want to hear more about Jack's shenanigans and good times downrange hunting insurgents for the OSI, grab it, because I definitely want to read it as well. And Jack, we hope that you would actually come back, but as we do whenever we have a guest, we want to let you dedicate your episode to whoever you would like, and I can tell that you definitely have a dedication that's sitting on your heart.
Yeah, 3 really good men. They were good friends. Tom Crowell, Special Agent Tom Crowell, he was our superintendent there. We lost him on November 1st, 2007, along with Dave Wigger, another special agent. Really nice guy. Got pictures of him with the kids in Iraq. They loved him. And Nathan Schultheis, he had a law degree, and he chose to go downrange and be a special agent and do the mission he was doing. When we go into the villages, Nate was one of the guys that had hair down to his shoulders, and I think all the kids thought he was Santa Claus when he came in, because he was always bringing toys, candy, toothbrushes, and stuff like that. It was like we were the ice cream truck when we pulled into some of those Iraqi villages. But
Right.
Nate was really good at what he did, and he stirred up a hornet's nest, and that's what got us.
Yeah. Well, rest easy, brothers. We've got it from here. And we'll keep dedicating our episodes until there's no one left to dedicate them to. But I don't think that day's coming anytime soon. So.
No.
Yeah,
Jack, we appreciate you. Again, we would love to be in touch with you. We'd love to have you back on if you're willing. For those of you that are watching this on YouTube, you'll notice that Jack, for OPSEC reasons, has kept his identity secret. So I think I'm just going to put a picture of Secret Squirrel up over his icon.
that'd be funny.
So, Jack, we thank you. Do you have anything you want to say to our audience before we close out here?
No, I appreciate the time talking to you guys, and I hope folks have an understanding about what OSI is about, and maybe there's some folks out there who want to serve.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, Chuck, why don't you take us out?
Well, Jack, I want to say thank you so much for coming back on. We can't wait for you to come back on to the show. That'd be absolutely great. I just want to say thank you, everyone, today for listening. If you like today's podcast and the content we provide, please help us out and rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or really whatever podcast platform you listen to us on. You can follow us. If you already follow us, please like and share our content in our posts. And you can follow us on Instagram at war_stories_official, and our Facebook at War Stories Podcast. You can also support us by going to www.warstoriesofficial.com, grab some gear. And if you want to be featured on the show or think you have a story to tell, go to booking.warstories@gmail.com. Again, that is booking.warstories@gmail.com. So I can get you booked. We're always looking for law enforcement, veterans, firefighters, medics, but also corrections dispatchers and nurses. And if you have a friend you think would be a great fit, let them know about us. Give them our booking email. Try to link us up together, and I can speak to them and we can get them booked to come on the show. And if you missed it, be sure to check out this book, Insurgent Hunter, Memoirs of a Navy SEAL turned counterinsurgent agent in Iraq. So thank you for those of you safe.
Yep. And for those of you that follow Locker Room, we're going to be doing Locker Room live on Thursday nights for right now, while Matt is in North Carolina on set. He's had some fun adventures on some decommissioned Coast Guard boats, and we'll hear about. We're recording this Thursday night. Well, last Thursday night, as of when you're hearing this. So as of hearing this episode, you heard all about Matt's adventures last Thursday on Locker Room, but we haven't discussed it with him yet. So until our next episode, come home with your shield or on it.